Have you ever stopped to think about what makes an office chair, actually comfortable? Or how a company figures out if a new tool is truly safe for people to use all day, every day? It might seem like it's just a bunch of guesswork, but nope, there's a whole science happening behind the scenes, a kind of hidden process that shapes our entire work environment. And today, we're going to pull back the curtain and look at the blueprint.
I mean, it all boils down to this, right? How do you get from a simple gut feeling, like, yeah, this chair feels okay, to actual scientific proof? The answer is research, but not just any research. We're talking about a super structured, methodical process that's designed to give us real answers we can act on. And you gotta think of it just like building a house. You can't just show up and start hammering nails into wood, right? You need a plan, a detailed guide that lays out every single step. And in the world of workplace safety and ergonomics, that plan, well, that's the research blueprint. So here's our game plan. We're going to walk through that exact blueprint together. We'll start with the initial plan, then we'll find the people involved, take a look at the tools they're using, see how they put all the data together, and then the big one, we'll see why any of this actually matters to you. Okay, first things first. Before a single person fills out a survey, before a single measurement is taken, researchers have to lay the groundwork. They have to decide exactly how they're going to tackle their big question. This is what's called the study design. You can think of it as the master strategy for the whole project. It's the big, high-level decision that kind of dictates everything that follows. Are we just taking a snapshot of a single moment in time? Or are we trying to measure what happens before and after we change something? And as you can see, it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of deal. Researchers pick their blueprint based on the question they're asking. If they want a big-picture snapshot, they might use what's called a cross-sectional study. Like surveying hundreds of sewing machine operators at one time to see who's feeling pain. But if they want to see if a new training program actually works, they'd use a pre-test, post-test design. They'd measure injury rates for nurses before the training and then again after the training. Each one of these is just a different path to get to the same destination, a reliable answer.
So once you've got the blueprint, you need to know who you're building for. Obviously, you can't study every single person on the planet, so researchers have to be really smart about who they choose to include in their studies.
And this brings us to sampling. Sometimes, if the group is small enough, you can study every single person. That's called a census, kind of like that study that looked at all 297 workers in a specific group of factories. But way more often, you have to take a random sample, like grabbing 169 professors out of a pool of 300 to get a really good representative idea of what's going on with the entire group. So who are these people anyway? Well, they're all of us. They're everywhere. We're talking studies on healthcare workers in busy operating rooms, cargo handlers on the docks, university professors, employees at massive petrochemical plants. This research really touches an enormous range of professions because at the end of the day, safety and comfort matter in every single job. Okay, so you've got your plan, you've got your people. Now, how do you actually get the information? For that, you need the right set of tools. These are the instruments that gather the raw materials for your findings. And I'm not talking about some flimsy 5-question online survey here. No way. We're talking about very specific, scientifically validated questionnaires and assessment tools that have been tested and tweaked over years and years to give us data that's actually consistent and meaningful. So let's crack open this toolbox for a second. Inside, you'll find things like the Nordic Musculoskeletal Questionnaire. That's a standardized way to track body pain. Then you have these cool observational tools like REBA, which stands for Rapid Entire Body Assessment, where a researcher literally watches a worker and scores the risk level of their posture in real time. There are even tools like the NASA TLX to measure your mental workload, or the Pittsburgh Sleep Quality Index to figure out how work stress might be wrecking your sleep. It's an incredibly detailed toolkit. And here's the key takeaway, the really crucial point. This science is holistic. It's not just about whether your back hurts. It understands that physical strain, your mental stress, and even how well you slept last night are all totally interconnected pieces of the puzzle when it comes to your well-being at work. All right, so now we have a literal mountain of raw data from all those tools and observations. But right now, it's just a giant pile of numbers. The next phase of the blueprint is the assembly, turning all that raw material into a structure that actually tells us something. So in going through dozens and dozens of these studies, one particular tool just kept showing up, again and again and again. I mean, it is the single most common piece of equipment in the entire construction kit. And that tool is SPS. It's a seriously powerful software program that lets researchers take all of this incredibly complex data and just start finding patterns. Is there a link between bad posture and neck pain? Does a new training program actually lower stress levels? SPS is the engine that uncovers the hidden answers in the data. So how's it work? Well, it's a pretty straightforward process. Researchers dump all their data in, then they choose the right kind of statistical test for the question they're asking, and then the software just works its magic, helping them find statistically significant patterns. It's what turns that sea of random numbers into a clear conclusion like, yes, there is a direct, provable link between using this new tool and workers feeling more fatigued. And just how essential is this one piece of software? Get this. In looking at the research for this explainer, we found that a whopping 23 out of 26 studies we reviewed relied on SPSS. That's nearly 90%. It is, without a doubt, the workhorse of this entire field. So, we've seen the plan, we've met the people, we've looked at the tools, and we've watched the assembly. But what about the finished building? Why go through all this meticulous, time-consuming work? This brings us to the most important question. Why does any of this matter? Right? Why should you care about study designs and sampling and some statistical software you've never heard of? Because the conclusions that come out of this process have a direct, real-world impact on your daily life, whether you even realize it or not. Think about it. Every single study that links posture to back pain, that's what informs the design of the lumbar support in your office chair. Every analysis that connects workload to stress, that can literally shape a company's mental health policies. This blueprint is directly responsible for building safer, more comfortable, and, more productive workplaces for all of us. It's like this invisible architecture that's all around us, a scientific process that's just constantly humming along in the background, making these small, gradual improvements to our tools, our furniture, and our jobs. It's quietly shaping your world for the better, one rigorous study at a time. So the next time you sit down at your desk, you lean back in your chair and feel that little bit of support in your lower back. Just take a second. And maybe you'll ask yourself, what hidden science, what incredible, meticulous blueprint made this simple little moment of comfort even possible?